I'll go ahead and record this then.
Okay.
It's recording now.
We're all ready. Well, hello, everyone. And first, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and chat about maintaining motivation as an exerciser. I will say that I have never met any exerciser that does not have motivation issues. Life would be really simple if every day you woke up and say, I can't wait to exercise. Maybe one of you is like that, but I have never met anybody like that. I know I look at my own life and I sort of put it on a scale of 1 to 10. Some days it's a 10. I'm up an hour early getting my bike ready. And other days I'm on the couch going, boy, I'm just waiting for someone to call me to see if they want to go on a bike ride. If not, I'm not going. And then there's other times where I just don't feel like doing it. And then I don't know what happens, but something happens internally and I go, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Typically, one of my best motivation strategies is to think about how I'm going to feel after I bike. And there's a variety of different feelings that we've all had that I look for. So that becomes my motivator. A little bit about my background. I'm a psychologist, trained as a psychologist. I worked in the University Counseling Services most of my career. In the last 5 years. I'm just going to put down that, I'm going to get rid of that sound. Let's see. I'm going to come back here. All right. And then the last 5 years, I've been teaching in the marriage and family therapy program at CSUN. I was trained and still work as a sports psychologist, and I started doing that in 1983 at Ohio State University before there really was sports psychologist, the profession. But because of my background as an athlete and my interest in sports and performance enhancement, I got into a role there, and then did the same when I was at the University of Southern California and did a little bit while I was at Northridge. I'm married and have 3 adult kids. And I will say that one of the benefits of me being an exerciser, almost my whole life, there was a period of time when we had 3 little kids and I just wasn't able to carve out the time as much as possible. But my kids have seen me as an exerciser. They've seen me wear my sunblock and wearing funny biking clothes, and they make fun of me all the time. They've roasted me. But I think one of the benefits that I didn't realize about being an exerciser, being a passionate exerciser, is that without me really trying to nudge my kids at all, they all have become exercisers. And I just think it's that they just watched. So they picked up some of my, what I believe are good habits. I'm not going to tell you the bad habits that they picked up, but they did pick up some. I guarantee you on that. You can't help but that, but I am pleased that they have picked up the passion for being active, and they do it in a variety of different ways. One of them is a kind of a bicyclist. We took a 2-week bicycling tour of New Zealand about 3 years ago, and it was one of the most kind of joyous times that I had in my life. So I'm going to talk about, the title is Maintaining Motivation, Keeping an Eye on Purpose. The idea here really is about keeping an eye on purpose. And to take a step back, from my perspective, my hypothesis is that purpose is probably one of the most important variables in our life. Whatever it is that we're doing, to be able to identify and know what our purpose is allows us to stay on track, allows us to get over those speed bumps that we experienced, allows us to move on. It creates meaning in our life. I do a lot of workshops for college students on belonging and academic motivation. And one of the questions that I ask the students is, why do you want a degree from CSUN? And there's layers of purpose there. And some of them will say, well, I just want a degree. Well, let's dig a little bit deeper. Then they might add, well, I want to make some money. Okay, that might do it for you, but let's keep on digging deeper. And as we dig deeper with the students around their purpose, they start to come up with examples like, I want to pay back my family. I want to make my family proud. I want to be a good role model for my siblings. I'm the first to go away to college. This is gigantic for my immigrant parents. I want a career. I want to make a difference in my career. And so they start to nuance the purpose of why they're in college. And I'm oftentimes surprised that they don't have a very nuanced or layered look at purpose. So the exercise allows them to dig a little bit deeper. And I'm going to use that same paradigm here around exercise in terms of purpose to really have you all get in touch with the variety of layers of purpose for exercise. Again, I believe that when we know what our purpose is, it will be the fuel. It will be the engine of our motivation, and we'll end up making healthier decisions. I want to make a couple comments about the presentation and where we're going. I'm going to talk a little bit about some ideas that I have around motivation and purpose. We're going to then do an exercise together. When I asked Jenny to put up a sheet that I'm going to have you look at. I'm going to talk, if we have time, I'm going to also talk about what's the difference between exercise passion and exercise obsession. My paradigm is that exercise passion is a lot better than exercise obsession. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those two look like differently and why I believe that they're more beneficial. And then we're going to open up for questions, as many as you would like. And you can ask me anything that you would like. If you were on the call a little bit earlier, my exercise story, and we all have an exercise story, and it's really important to sort of unpack your exercise story. I feel very blessed and very privileged. I grew up in North Hollywood in the 50s and lived on a block that had tons of kids at the time. And our fun was either playing basketball, playing baseball, skateboarding, bicycling, running. I had a playground right outside my house. So being active, playing sports, I got good at sports, not because I was natural at it, but we did it every single day for 6-7 hours a day. You're going to get better. I went to high school and I played some competitive sports in high school. I was a swimmer and I played basketball. And then I continued playing basketball until I was 40 years old, and I ended up tearing my ACL, and then I switched to biking. So I've been biking for over 25 years, pretty consistently. Part of my story is that you can see is that part of my development of an exerciser has been around having fun. For me, playing basketball was just fun. I didn't even identify that I'm exercising. I just loved it. And so I've chosen a route of exercise that has to do with being outside. Typically it's social. When I'm with I might go out with a couple of my buddies, and we always will have coffee afterwards or a meal afterwards. So it becomes something that's part of my lifestyle as an exerciser. So I do go out alone now because of the COVID, and I don't necessarily enjoy it as much as going out with others. But that's a little bit about my exercise story. As an athlete, I did compete. I did some bike races when I was younger. I I might go into a bike race now, but I don't do it to race. I just do it to be around a whole bunch of people. I play golf, but I don't keep score. So as I get older, I'm just kind of, the meaning of exercise starts to change, and the competitive nature of exercise starts to change as well. At least it did for me. Let me say two things around motivation that I'm not going to cover, but and maybe you'll have a question about it later, but I'm just going to put it out there. One, I love Strava. I've been on Strava for many years. I will say I'm not on Facebook. It's my only social media that I have. Now, I don't always do it for social media. I'm not chatting with folks, but I do like to follow what other people are doing. I like for them to follow what I'm doing. I put pictures on. And the best part is I do like to look at how many miles I did in the year. And then I have some fun with it where I divide it by 24 and I go, this is how many days I exercised this year. This is how many hours. Or I look at the miles that I've ridden and I say, gosh, I rode from California to New York and back. I don't think I did it that far, but I look at how far I've biked. And then the other part is you can kind of keep track of how you're doing on certain segments. And while I don't go out to create PRs, naturally, the more that I get in shape, I get surprised. I go, oh my goodness, I didn't even know I got a PR on that. And that just tells me something about my fitness. So I do believe in Strava, and I would support and suggest that if you're not a part of Strava, and if it's a type of activity that you do, to do it, it's free. You can upgrade for a couple other things. And the two other things that I recommend is, one is to change your routine. Tends to help a lot with motivation. If you find, like if I find myself going up the same trail, bloom, 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 I get tired of it. And I can imagine if you're weightlifting, just to change your routine. If you're running, change the neighborhood that you're running in, change the time of the day that you do it. It's so different running in the morning than it is when the sun is starting to go down. So think about changing your routine. And the other part that, at least for me, works is if I've got a ride and we've got a little network saying, okay, we're going to meet at this trailhead at 7:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock at night. Who's in? I'm in. I like having an accountability partner. It adds to my motivation quite a bit. I feel like a little bit of responsibility. If I've said yes, I'm going to be there. And rarely do I cancel, and rarely do the people that I go with cancel either. So we've got this kind of thing going on. So those are the couple things that I'm not going to get into real in depth, but I would encourage you to think about those ideas to keep your motivation going. So coming back to purpose. So exercise has layers of purpose. And the more layers you have, the more depth to your layers, and the more you remind yourself of your purpose, your motivation goes up. And even when you're feeling sort of like you're on the couch and you're tired and either you're hungry or you're a little sleepy or whatever it may be, or for me, it was driving home from work. I'm driving home, I'm really excited, but for some reason, driving just wears me out. So I'm thinking, I'm going to go on a ride. I get out of my car and I go, oh, I don't feel as energized about riding. I have to think about purpose, particularly if I don't have an accountability partner, and just thinking about the layers of it. When I talk about purpose, I'm looking at mind, body, and spirit. And when I mean spirit, is like your identity. It's bigger than yourself. Your mind is about your cognitions. It's about the physiological firings that go on. and then your body is your holistic body, whether it's having good energy, feeling fit, all of that. So before we go into the exercise, does anybody have any questions about what I'm proposing as one of the main engines for motivation, being purpose? Does anybody have any questions in terms of how I've explained myself around that? Just raise your hand. Are you guys chiming in about the importance of purpose? Does that seem to fit with you, that word, that concept? Okay. All right. So Jenny, can you pull up and then I'll let you know what I'm going to ask you to do. So I listed a bunch of ideas about purpose, and they all have different layers to them. I will say to you, if you only have one purpose, your motivation probably isn't going to be as good. And I'm going to put out some of my well, it's my prejudices. If the only reason you exercise is you want to look attractive to others, it's going to be very hard for you to sustain motivation over a long period of time. And we're talking about sustaining motivation, sustaining your exercise routines. So, can you all see all of them there? Yeah, I think the last one is, yeah, I want to. And then there may be something up there. There's something that you have as a purpose that I didn't anticipate, and I'd love for you to share that. So if you would, is to rank order your top 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about your sustainable purpose. What are the 5 concepts up there? And then we're going to have a little discussion, but I'm also going to share something about why I worded these in the way that I did. So if you guys can take 3-5 minutes to read it over and just see where your gut lands on your top 5 in rank order if possible. Anybody need any more time? All right. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. I can't see all of you, I think because that it's on there. It's oh, here we go. Okay. Um, Anybody have an idea of why I worded these purpose statements the way I do? What is what do you see in how I worded it? Jenny?
I saw for some that you've put for approval from others, and then some is more of approval for yourself and what you want and what you value and what your purpose may be.
Good. Yes, and they both are okay. You know, sometimes people say, "Oh, you can't do it for others." I believe that doing it for others is okay. I believe, though, that a balance and a priority of having it for yourself is going to be more sustainable than doing it for others. But I want to be realistic. We do it for others as well. Um, what else did you notice about the language of this list?
Well, they all start with I want to.
Yes. Who said that?
Me, Melinda.
Oh, hi, Melinda. That's right. So they're aspirational, they're moving towards something rather than moving away. For me, moving towards something is always more motivational than moving away. So for example, I could have put down on the first one, oh, I don't want to be fat. To me, that's not going to be sustainable. Or I don't want to do this, or I don't want this. It's about what you want rather than what you don't want. And I believe that motivation is about aspiration. It's about moving towards something. So that's the purpose of this of the way that I worded things. So good catch, Melinda. Anybody else notice anything, or you pick up from my the way that I worded things? Any other themes that came out for you or ideas?
I think some of the things are short term, some are long term,
Yes,
some are past,
yes,
and some are future.
yes. That's right. And that's all part of this kind of, when you put it all together in the mind, body, spirit, we're talking about ourselves in the now, but sometimes we're remembering something in the past, but we're also trying to futurize something. Did anybody come up with something that's not on the list that you would identify as part of your purpose for being an exerciser? Kate?
Kind of. I did. I looked at all the different ones on there, and they all ended up coming back to the same like why behind all of them. They all came back to the same person. Like besides myself, but I have a young daughter, and so they all were linked to how I like interact and how I want to spend time with her.
Yeah,
And so that was just sort of an interesting revelation.
yeah. That's a great story. I'll tell a very quick personal story. Is someone once asked me, why do you bike? Why do you like to bike? Why do you like to exercise? And I said, I want to be a better father. And they go, what do you mean? I said, man, when I come home from my bike ride, I got so much more patience than when I get home from work and out of my car and straight into. So I know that being an exerciser has made me a better father. So I think I'm relating to you, Kate, as well. It's amazing how the world changes after you exercise. People look nicer, they look friendlier, you know, and then you end up changing inside yourself too, because you're relating to others much differently, and then they end up relating to you as well. The reality, the world has not changed at all in those 2 hours that you've exercised. The only thing that's changed is you. So again, that's another kind of motivator that I put down there in terms of just feeling better, which means I have more patience. I like people more. Food tastes better, a variety of different things. Anybody else come up with something that was not on the list?
I don't think I
Arlene?
saw it. So excuse me. I don't think I saw it, but I put, I want to be stronger.
Great. Yes. I think that's, and I think I will say, I'm going to go out on the edge a little bit. I put my daughter in karate on purpose, and my grandchildren are taking Taekwondo. And I think it, particularly for women, to feel stronger is really, really important on a variety of different levels. So thank you for that, Arlene. I think that's really critical. Anybody else have something? I think Josh, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I put I want to be able to run for as long as possible, as in
Okay.
timeline. So as
Okay.
old as I can get and still be running.
Okay. And you know, there's a couple of us, I'm not going to say who it is, but you know who you are. As we're getting older and aging, we have to start to project into the future. So right now, at my age, I'm 66. I'm looking at guys in their mid 70s. I usually go a decade ahead of me, and I'm going, who do I want to be like when I'm 75? Josh, you may be looking at, you know, someone in their 40s or whatever, or maybe guys like, you know, us, and saying, hey, I want to be able to do that when I'm in my 60s. So that's really quite important. And for me, it's been just very inspirational to find these folks. I say, okay, this is what I want to be doing when I'm 10 years older than I am. Good. Well, Jenny, yes.
Asia in the chat, she had said that she wants to feel good and it's related to mood.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. We know, you know, as a psychologist, and someone comes to me and they're feeling a little bit down, a little bit depressed, a little bit agitated, they're not sleeping so well, they're not finding motivation. In my assessment, one of my key questions I'm asking them is, what kind of physical activity do you do? And I actually prescribe exercise. I'm not an MD, so I can't prescribe antidepressants or anti-anxiety, and I don't go that as a first routine. I say, you try exercise for a month consistently and tell me what your mood is like and track it. And if it doesn't get better, then we'll look at another option. So exercise as a mood enhancer, as a mood stabilizer, is probably one of the best tools that I have in my toolbox as a psychologist. I'm curious if you guys don't mind doing a little bit of self-disclosing. I'd love to see what your number one, what you ranked as number one as your sustainable purpose, the purpose that allows you to get up from the couch when you don't feel like it, or allows you to kind of make a decision to exercise that day or that week or however long it is. Irma.
My number one is to be healthier.
Beautiful. Love
And
it.
And that's because of my granddaughter. I didn't have a chance, but one of the things that I want is to inspire my granddaughter to be active and stay healthy, because I see a lot of younger generations, especially her, she's 4, they're very attached to technology and they don't like to exercise. They don't like to be outdoors. So I want to be an inspiration to her and the younger generation.
Irma, that's a great example, and I can't agree with you more. And I'm sure that Dr. Loy has a lot of good research about what the heck is happening with our kids and being on the computer and all of that. The other part, Irma, that I want to respond to is, in my meandering around and talking with grandparents more and more, many of them are saying, I want to be able to keep up with my grandchildren. I want to be able to get on the floor and play with them. I want to be able to run up the hill with them. I want to be able to go on a vacation with them. And so there's a way that you want to stay active because you're going to be able to connect with your grandchildren. So great story. Who else would like to share their number one ranking for a sustainable purpose? Jenny?
I was debating between 2 of them, and I came up with, I think the most important one is I want to have a better self-concept.
Okay. Can you say more about that, Jenny, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I can say more. Yeah. So growing up, or I don't know if this is the same in other culture, but we're supposed to be ladylike and not pick up heavy weights, or if you pick up a heavy weight, you're going to break your back and stuff like that. And for me, I lost my confidence when I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease because I couldn't get on and off the floor without any type of medication. And so when I got back into the routine of exercise, I figured I got a lot stronger and my confidence levels went up the roof. And just being able to determine my self-worth based off of things that I can do for myself and not what other people can do for me or what I can do for others.
Great story and congratulations. And you put a smile on my face by hearing your story. And I know that other people around the idea of self-concept is, we have a variety of self-concepts that we're proud of. It could be the profession that we're in, the kids that we have, the hobbies that we have, our spiritual connections. But there's something about the self-concept of being an exerciser, because you get to say to yourself, and I think it's on that list of, I want to identify as someone that is interested in my health. I love myself. When you love yourself and when you're doing things that are nurturing your time on this earth, and it adds. You may not wake up every day and go, oh, I'm an exerciser, but on some level, it's seeking into your self-identity. It's seeking into your self-concept. For those of you on the opposite end, and I've tried to help many people who were smokers, they hated the identity of being a smoker, and they hid it in many ways because they were so shameful about that. And when I unpacked it, it wasn't about the smoking. It was about the perception that people would not see them, or they didn't see themselves as loving themselves enough to not want to take a risk that you don't need to take. So the self-concept and loving yourself is really good as you identify as I'm an exerciser. Hi, I'm Bill and I'm an exerciser. It's okay to say that. Thank you. Steve, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the list was too long because there were so many that you would have wanted to pick, right?
Yeah.
There's like too many choices.
Yeah.
But then, the ones that I ended up picking, there were 5 as you suggested we do, but as I'm looking at them, the 5 of them, it would kind of rotate through the days of the week.
Yes.
Like this one is okay for today, but
Yes.
it's not going to make it for tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
And so I won't stick with one completely.
Yeah. So what's your one for today?
Today? Oh, for today?
Yeah.
I think today is prove something,
Okay.
but I know I have healthy on top, but I don't know if that's because of what I'm supposed to say,
Uh-huh.
because of who I am.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if I don't say that, then that's not right. But today's prove something.
Okay.
Thanks, because I didn't sleep well last night, and so I had to prove something.
Yeah. Well, to your point, Stephen, is that this list is dynamic and it does change. And in fact, I hope you take most of those on the list, or at least that fit. It doesn't have to be 5. I was just doing it as sort of as an exercise to pick something out. But it is dynamic. In certain days, it's about mood. I will say that if you do have trouble being motivated to exercise, and when I say have trouble, the way that I define trouble is not that you're having trouble being motivated, but you act on your motivation. So when you're not feeling motivated, you might skip a whole bunch. And then, as we know, when we start to skip a week, it turns into 2 weeks, and it turns into 3 weeks, and it turns into six months. So it's more about it's the consequences of not being motivated that I'm looking at more than on it. Because if you don't feel like you're motivated most of the time, but you're still getting up and doing your exercising, then you're motivated because you didn't listen to that part in your brain that said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You overcame that. Anybody else like to share what's your number one motivator to sustain your motivation? What's your one number one purpose to sustain your motivation?
I can go next.
Please.
Okay, so from the list, I picked to be healthier. But now, after hearing everybody's stories, I guess healthier, not just physically, but also mentally. I have 3 children, and I shared not too long ago with the university, my fellows, about how I suffered from postpartum depression, but I wasn't aware of it until after my 3rd child. I went into this panic mode. And I think it was like a whole week of no sleep, no hunger. It was really, really awful. So then I went to see all these doctors thinking something's wrong with me, something's wrong with me. And then they said, nope, you're fine. Your labs are good. So then I was just Googling, what can I do? What can I do? So I started exercising. And I think when I don't feel like exercising, I remember about that awful feeling. And I told myself, I never, ever want to feel like that ever again. So that's what made me fall in love with exercise.
Beautiful story. And Jasmine, you've sort of found the magic of exercise. And, I don't know all of you and where you are with your exercise routine, but it becomes a part of, for me, I will say that it becomes a part of my life where I'm carving out time in my day. When am I going to read the papers of my students? When am I going to plan for my next class? When am I going to go shopping for food? And when am I going to exercise? And it's become part of my life where it means for me to make sure that I carve out time. And some people call that a positive addiction, where it's not much effort anymore. It's just part of who I am, and it feels like I will exercise. I will exercise like I do eating food. It's like, oh, I got to eat some food. I want to eat some food. I feel better after eating food. Oh, I want to exercise. I like exercising, and I want to feel better after I exercise. There's one other comment that I was going to say based on. It will come back to me. Jenny, do we have until 2 o'clock? Is that right? Okay. So I'm sorry that I won't get to all of your purposeful ways of creating motivation for you. Again, I will say that developing and I'm going to emphasize, a sustainable motivation, you need to keep an eye on your purpose. It's a lot easier to just sort of get up, okay, I'm going to do it for a week and I feel really good, but it's about, and that's a start. It's one day at a time. It's 1 foot at a time. At the same time, you want to be thinking about how are you going to sustain that so that it becomes just a part of your identity, of who you are, as much as I'm going to eat some food, I'm going to exercise. I will say that, there are certain things in life that are a lot easier to continue. I'll use the word food, because usually when people are eating food, it's pleasurable. They like the taste. With exercise, it's not always pleasurable, because sometimes you're in pain. I'm going up some of these hills and I'm swearing, and I didn't even think about swearing, but it just comes out of my mouth, and I typically don't swear. And I can feel the pain. But I also will let you know that every time I exercise, I take a moment of gratitude. And I would encourage you all to do that every single time you exercise. Take 30 seconds to say, I feel so blessed right now. I feel so fortunate to be able to exercise. And many of you probably have experienced, because of an injury or an illness, not being able to exercise for a while. For me, when I've had a couple falls on my bike and I've broken some stuff, the first thing when I fall, or the first thing I do that I ask my doctor is, guess what? When can I get back on my bike? So when I do get back on my bike, and I remind myself all the time with this statement of gratitude of, I feel so blessed. And there's times where I'm actually tearful with the amount of gratitude that I feel during that moment, because I feel alive. I feel blessed. I feel privileged. And so I would encourage you to kind of bring in a practice of gratitude to your exercise. It will go a long way, because you'll have muscle memory about why it is that you enjoy exercising and the meaning that it has to you. The last thing that I wanted to cover, and I think, Jenny, is it on the screen? What's the difference between exercise passion and exercise obsession?
Yes, I can share the screen again.
Great, thank you. I kind of wish I was a comedian, because I can make some really good jokes about people that I see who are exercise obsessed and exercise passion. I think you can probably tell by my tone of my voice is that I think it's healthier to be an exerciser with passion rather than an exerciser with obsession. But I will tell you that sometimes knowing where that line is between obsession and passion is a little bit hard to know. There's a lot of gray area. But I do believe that exercise obsession can be dangerous, because you end up ignoring injuries. I've known people that are obsessed with exercise, and they get into such a routine and they can't break the routine, and they end up missing important events in their in their families' lives, and they end up not having as much family time. I know people that are exercise obsessed, and they end up beating themselves up when they didn't exercise during that planned time, and so they don't have any compassion for that. And the other exercise obsession, this is a little bit of a joke, if you meet somebody and within the first like 5 seconds they tell you, oh yeah, I'm a X, Y, or Z, you know their exercise obsession. And if every conversation happens to be around their exercise, they're a little bit too much obsessed with it. I look at exercise passion as this is a part of your identity that others know about you. It's not your complete identity. Folks know about my love of biking, and if you went to see my closet, I've got about 40 biking shirts. I'm wearing one of them right now, a smiley face, because it's a great way for people that don't know what to get me. They get me a bike shirt. So I have a lot of bike shirts. And then to have some flexibility and perspective about the role of exercise in your life. It's not all of you, it's part of you. And it's so important not to make it all of you, because you set yourself up if there is an injury, if you do get ill, then, and you can't do that, does your identity go away? You hope that you have something else that you can lean on besides, I'm just this. With exercise passion, as I said, you make time to exercise. You can choose, you can choose to exercise even when you don't feel like exercising. That's okay. You reward yourself cognitively when you exercise. There's times when what feels so good is like, you know, I was on the couch, I didn't feel like doing it, blah, blah, I had all my excuses, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm out and I'm on my bike and I'm riding and I go, good for you, Mark. Way to push through that sort of resistance, and I give myself credit. And then the other part is, on the same hand, I don't beat myself up when I do not exercise as planned. It's not the end of the world if you don't exercise. The world isn't gonna stop. I know people that I think are more exercise obsession, and they go, oh, I didn't exercise today, I'm gonna gain some weight, or this is gonna happen, or I'm gonna lose my muscle, or whatever that may be. That's a little bit out of perspective. So let me stop talking, and great. And I just wanna open it up to any comments, any questions that you might have for me about what we've been talking about, or other areas that you think that you'd like to know about. And if I don't know it, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Loy. Jenny.
I wanted to add on to exercise passion and exercise obsession.
Please.
So back, I would say a couple of months ago, I would say I was exercise obsessed, because I used to beat myself up for missing a training day. Since pre-quarantine, I was training for Spartan races. I was training for obstacle course racing with a team. And when I would go through some mental detoxing and I was going through an emotional phase, I would feel so tired to work out, and then I would beat myself up for it. And I was talking to one of my mentors about this, and he had said something that resonated with me, and I think this will resonate for other people, to listen more to their mental health and their body, of needing rest. And that is keeping in mind exercise is a habit. And so if you're already in a consistent habit of exercising, missing 1 or 2 training days is not going to be a big deal. Just like if you were to eat a healthy meal, just because you had 1 healthy meal or 2 healthy meals doesn't mean you're healthy. And so when those days do come, think about yourself as a battery percentage, right? Because when you're training, you're exerting energy. And when you're already mentally drained and you add more stressors onto it, like let's say you're already 60% of the day and you force yourself to train, you are going to go down to maybe 30%, 40%. And then it's going to take you longer to recover, because you're just kind of like pounding more at the bruise or at the cut. And so just in case anyone needed to hear that, I wanted to share that because it's really helped me learn how to listen to my body and to think of exercise as a passion versus being obsessed with it.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a great example and a great story. Anybody else have a question, a comment?
I just had to say, I needed to hear that, Jenny. Because I had to skip 2 days and I beat myself up so much about it. And it was terrible because I like Jasmine, who I'm so happy she shared her postpartum depression story. I had postpartum depression as well. And so, especially with the quarantine, like being able to exercise has really helped with my mood and anxiety. And so not going to be able to do that and added to it, I'm like, oh no, how am I going to manage my anxiety? How am I going to manage everything right now? And so it was tough. And so I was able to go out last night, but I was immediately wanted to go and start going, like, to make up for those past few days. And it was okay. But I'm like, I'm now checking in more about this exercise obsession versus exercise passion. So I need to check that a lot more.
Good story, Kate. I'd add that, I just, in a compassionate sort of way, you're allowed to have those thoughts, and in some ways I tell people, don't try to control your thoughts, but look at them and make a choice to not act on them if you don't think they're the wisest thoughts to have, or the thoughts that is going to lead you in a certain kind of direction. But to have those thoughts is really quite normal and natural. So even when you're more of an exercise passion, you're still going to have some of those thoughts that come in. It's just kind of part of our nature. But looking at them, slowing yourself down to unpack them, and then you get to make a wiser decision.
Definitely that's true. Yes. Thank you.
So, Mark, this is slightly off topic, but as we gear up to start school in a couple weeks, and we've had a discussion amongst ourselves with our students that with this COVID and looking forward to, a year of some similar type lifestyle, a lot of our students are having trouble staying motivated.
Yes.
And is there, as we approach this year, is there one piece of advice that you could provide for us to handle this with our students? And it's not just students, right? It's everybody's got stuff that they got to do. So, yeah. And as we look a year ahead, what is it that we can direct people's focus towards?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a difficult question to answer because I've just met so many people. There's this, it's almost like you can't label the change of motivation. And I know a little bit about where it's coming from because we're all living much more anxiously than we have for a long time. And so anxiety, back to your battery analogy, Jenny, is the anxiety drains your battery. And most of the time we know when we're anxious, and so we can do something about it. Now there's this incipitous, almost free-floating kind of anxiety that's draining our battery. My example is, I used to love going into the food market and shopping, taking my time, touching all the fruits and seeing what, I leave going out of a market going, I feel like I went through a war zone. So it drained my energy. And then I'm thinking, why am I not wanting to work on my syllabus for my class as much as I normally do? A syllabus is no big deal. I've done it before. So I think the first step is to normalize, to be able to identify that you're not a bad, awful, terrible person because you don't have the same kind of motivation that you did. From my perspective, Steve, it's about folks finding something that will change their routine just a little bit, that will give them a spark. And so if people are in the same routine, they're probably not feeling as content. So on some level, when you look at the academic motivation, I also am suggesting that people find something else that can spark them. And maybe it's a little bit of a new hobby, or maybe it's reading a certain book or something like that. The other thing is, we're trying to figure it out and we just don't have the answer. But I think talking about it, relieves us a little bit. The other part, I'll go back to accountability partners. I'm a strong believer in academic accountability partners. So when you need to go write a paper together, you want to go study together. I know maybe you can't meet if you're not comfortable together, but dang, get on a Zoom call. Don't even talk with one another. Don't even do the Zoom things, but be in the same room while you're studying. And because when people study, they go to their places that they sort of like, and now we can't go to the library, and some people like that, or some people like studying here or there. So thinking about a different routine for studying. And we're going to figure that out. I think it's one of these kind of let's see what happens. But I'm also worried about it too, for students and for faculty as well. I think we're looking at defining productivity a little bit different too. By the way, I define exercising when I have a bike ride, it's been a productive day. One of my measures of productivity.
Mark.
Anything else before we end the hour meeting, which has gone by very fast? All right, Jenny, any final announcements, or Stephen, any other final announcements that you want to make while we have everybody?
Jenny, anything?
I personally don't have anything. I wanted to say thank you for everyone for being here. This was much appreciated, Mark Stevens, and we are looking forward to seeing the other topics that you'll be discussing in the near future.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark.
This was very enjoyable, and let's go out and sweat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everybody.